You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
Welcome back to The Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. In the next segment, we'll be joined with Leanne McAdoo. Today, I want to look at a couple of troubling trends in technology, I would say. This story that's on Drudge Report and elsewhere, we've got it at Infowars.com from RT. Type messages with your brain, says Facebook. They're going to do this for your convenience. They're going to read your mind. They don't want to say that they want to read your mind. They don't want to say they're developing technology to read your mind. They're just going to say, well, you'll be able to type with your brain. You need to use your brain and think about where this is all headed. Okay, we need to have technology that serves us, but understand that every tool can be put to good use or put to a bad use. You need to go back and read the book, and we've interviewed the author of The Pentagon's Brain. I'm trying to remember what her name is. It doesn't come to me right now, but Jacobson, yes. Annie Jacobson, right? Is that what you said? Yeah, Annie Jacobson. And it's a great book. I listened to it on tape. She's got a great voice to narrate it. And if you look at that, you can see the abuse, the misuse of technology. You have to understand that the government under Obama set up hundreds of millions of dollars in their BRAIN project, BRAIN. It's an acronym, and I don't even know or care what their acronym is. They always create these phony acronyms to sell their projects. But basically what it is brain control. They want to be able to selectively remove and implant memories, but they'll sell it as helping people who have PTSD. But you have to think about, when you look at a technology like that, how could it be abused by people who have made it their work for decades of trying to control other people's minds? The MK Ultra program and other things. LSD was created by these types of programs because they wanted to use that against enemy troops, debilitate them so that they couldn't fight. You have to understand where this technology is headed. And I think another good example of this is the autonomous car technology. We hear all of these glowing reports about how wonderful it's going to be when you no longer have any control over your transportation. As I was driving in this morning, I heard people on local radio talking about how in the state of Texas, we have all these car companies coming in and testifying before the state legislature, saying that they want to be able to test their cars on the road. One of the first things in this law that they're putting up would be to mark these cars like you would a student driver. That would be the very least that you ought to be able to do, because this is unproven technology. They're going to be experimenting on this on the road, and these cars are very unpredictable. This is untested technology. That's why they are testing it. But they're going to test it with a live test on your roads, and they're going to get away with it because they're well-connected corporations. One of the things that they're looking at, Toyota is looking at a system that is going to control your car from outside of your car. Of course, that's where it's all headed. It's the first time they've talked about this, but that's exactly where it's headed. And they're going to prohibit human-driven cars in certain areas. So eventually they'll go to just some roads that will be roads that are only for robotic tax and track taxis. And then they'll have a few roads that you can drive on, and then they'll gradually tighten the noose so that you will not be able to go anywhere without paying rent to some crony capitalist corporation that is going to turn over all the information to the government, that the government is going to shake hands with them and say, well, I don't think we want Johnny to be able to go anywhere because he owes some taxes, or he's an enemy of the state, or whatever. They're going to use this for control, and they're going to use it for monopoly. One of the articles that I say, one of the interesting articles, Road and Track had a thing, oh great, now autonomous cars are learning to drive by playing Grand Theft Auto. And I pointed that out to CJ, and he goes, yeah, I guess they're going to train the autonomous cars to run over police and pick up hookers. But this would be funny if it wasn't so serious. It's Agenda 21. It is total domination by cutting off your freedom of movement, folks. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. And we've been talking with Roger Stone about drug prohibition and the various pronouncements of people within law enforcement, from the Attorney General down to the drug czar. The drug czar making comments, I'm not sure if you heard it, Leanne, but saying that we need to have some kind of hospital/prison that we confine people that we suspect to be using or possessing drugs. We keep them there until they break down and confess to possession, and we put them in treatment.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to sound compassionate, I guess. But, there's a drug czar offering us a kind of Stalin-esque solution to a situation that should be a medical treatment program, yes, but not done under those types of conditions. But I want to focus with you on what's going on with MS-13, because we had some new revelations that came out towards the end of last week about Long Island. And, of course, we had a lot of publicity earlier about Maryland, where there was a lot of MS-13 gang crime there.
Right.
And this is an El Salvadoran gang that got started with a lot of illegal immigrants in Los Angeles. And so, yes, it is tied to open borders and to lax immigration. But I think people need to understand that they would not be billionaires, MS-13, and they would not have the kind of power, and they would not have this kind of ruthlessness if it wasn't for the war on drugs and the profits that it creates. Because when you create prohibition, just like with Al Capone, you give these people a monopoly on the black market that you've created. And it is a very lucrative market, and they will do anything to eliminate their competition. They don't run sales. They cut people's heads off. They hack people to death. So, yeah, they come over here. They don't have any job skills. They're not going to be cutting hedges down to size. They're going to be cutting people's heads off, and we've seen that. And many of the victims of their crimes are Latinos in these areas, because they're kids that are either in a rival gang or they're in that gang and they didn't do what they were supposed to do in that gang.
Right.
So this is not, it doesn't even have a one ethnic group versus another aspect to it. This is full-on organized crime and terrorism, but the root of this is the war on drugs.
Right.
Not just the open borders.
Right. There's so much money to be made, and it's not as if these low-level guys here on the street, they're not billionaires, but this money is going back to the heads of the cartels. And Jeff Sessions is saying that they could be designated a terrorist organization, which is a great move. It is key, because this will basically make it providing any material support here or abroad would be now considered a felony. It would compel U.S. financial institutions to freeze any assets that they believe belong to this group. So that's a good first start. I mean, this is a very violent gang. This is gangs that are willing to use machetes to chop people up. They really make an effort to show people, don't speak out against us, because we will murder you in brutal ways. They go after children. They'll hack their hands and feet, heads, all of that, hack them up after they've prostituted them out. So it's a very violent gang, but it's just the beginning. This is just one of the gangs that the cartels use to funnel drugs and other launder money throughout our country. They're operating now in 40-plus states. I mean, we just had a few months ago here in San Antonio, a body was found in a dumpster that, with the telltale signs of the gang, their hands and feet were chopped off. So they were, this is, here now in San Antonio. So this is creeping up into many states, and people really need to be aware of this. And we were kind of highlighting how President Obama's lax immigration was allowing some of these MS-13 gang members into the country, because they were even offering them tattoo removal services and things like that, so they could start a new life here.
Well, immediately after the election, you had amnesty groups in California saying that they wanted legislation that would block the state of California from turning over the lists of gang members to the federal government, because they said, well, you might have a couple of innocent people that were flagged as gang members who aren't gang members, but they were taking the side of MS-13. And there are innocent people who are being killed all the time by MS-13. I'm sorry if there are some people who have violated the law, who are foreign citizens, who are criminally trespassing in our country here illegally. I'm sorry if they get swept up because they're on a gang list, but I really want to get the gang out of here. And you're talking about the new tools that they have. And, of course, when we go back and we look at alcohol prohibition, we should remember all these old movies that you've seen of Al Capone and these other guys riding on the sides of the running boards of their cars, spraying each other with Tommy guns. That was something that the United States had never seen before. That was a creation of prohibition. That ended when prohibition ended. You don't see people spraying each other, when they try to compete selling alcohol. They're not shooting each other on St. Valentine's Day massacres or whatever, and they're not shooting innocent people in the streets. And this has gone on for much, much longer than we ever had alcohol prohibition. And now what we're seeing is a new level of brutality and sadistic behavior and the way that they mutilate the bodies and beat people. This is the fruit of our prohibition. But what we have done in this country is not just go after the people who are profiting from this drug trade, the gangs and the criminals who are selling it in the black market, but we've also gone after the end user, and that hasn't worked either. That has had equally bad results for us because it has corrupted our law enforcement by turning them into highway robbers. So this is the real fruit of prohibition, which began as a UN agenda. All of you need to look that up. That's something that Law Enforcement Against Prohibition educated me about. It began as a UN agenda 10 years before Richard Nixon did it. It was unconstitutional to begin with. It is not supported by the Commerce Clause. The Commerce Clause was always there. And they made it clear that the Commerce Clause did not give them the power to make these kind of laws. They made that very clear with the 9th and 10th Amendment. And they also made it clear when they created another constitutional amendment to prohibit alcohol. But they now ignore the Constitution for our drug wars, just like they ignore it for our foreign wars. They couldn't care less what the Constitution says. So
Right. Yeah, they can just convince us all that it's outdated. And David,
it's not expedient.
Right.
Yeah.
And what you are also talking about with just this prohibition, a good example of this is that now that marijuana, it's easier to access. It's becoming legalized in some states. Now the cartels are moving away from marijuana and they're going to heroin, meth, things like that, which are harder, for people to get their hands on, I guess. But it's interesting because it's actually the pharmaceutical companies who are really behind this massive increase in heroin addiction because people get addicted to these opiates, these painkillers that they're forced on it because.
It's very interesting to see that back during the election, we had Chris Christie in one of his most powerful speeches. Because it was a very personal, very compelling recollection of someone that he knew that was very successful in law school, whose life was completely destroyed when he got addicted to these kind of opioid painkillers. And he was pivoting, though, from that experience to marijuana prohibition. And it's a total non sequitur to say that, to correlate these two. And we have to understand the difference between these things. And we also have to understand that it really isn't being solved by law enforcement. And, of course, Canada acknowledges this. They're talking about legalizing it within very tight limits. And then once you get outside of those tight limits, they are going to, again, hammer you with prison, with massive fines and that sort of thing. But they still understand that it's not working. And it is a step in the right direction. And hopefully people will start to realize that, no, if instead of having 4 plants, you got 5 plants, you shouldn't go to jail for 15 or 20 years just for that, stepping over that little bit of line. So gradually people are starting to wake up. But I think we need to get back to the Constitution. We need to stop making everything a law enforcement problem. They say when the only tool you've got is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Right. Well, this is not a law enforcement problem.
Right. And so back in 1985, the World Health Organization started encouraging doctors to prescribe opioid analgesics for long-term cancer pain. And then they started saying, well, maybe we could do for short-term pain as well. And there used to be only 4 indicators that doctors would look for, your heartbeat, things like that. But then pain started being one of these indicators that doctors would, do you have any pain? Oh, well, I've got something for that. So this was being pushed by the World Health Organization, and pain became a vital sign. And so this made OxyContin, things like that, it was really heavily pushed as pain is a disease, not a symptom. So we'll go ahead and attack your pain. So this is where when the prescriptions run out, people turn to street drugs. And so this is why you have the cartels now focusing on heroin. We're having such a massive heroin epidemic in this country. But something that also Breitbart's really been heavily on covering with their Cartel Chronicles series is the fact that the U.S. media is ignoring the Mexican president's ties to drug cartels. And so, yes, we have going after MS-13 is great, but there's all of these other gangs, prison gangs, Aryan Brotherhood, stuff like that, that are also working with the cartels to move these drugs in our country. And so going after MS-13 is a really great start, but, you know, it's also kind of a way to not offend Mexico.
Yeah.
And
of course, we could also take a look at the CIA's connections to growing poppies in Afghanistan, and then the crack cocaine epidemic, and Oliver Stone being involved with the Iran-Contra and all the, you know, funding their little wars with crack cocaine and stuff. All these governments are tied together with this, and it's not just, you know, funding their police departments by confiscating people's property. I mean, that's really bad, but they also have a dark side of this that eventually surfaces sometimes, and then we wind up shooting the messenger, as we did when that was exposed with the crack cocaine epidemic that was engineered for the El Salvadoran War, which, by the way, the MS-13 gang comes from. Maybe they're
right.
Maybe Oliver Stone knows some of these guys. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. We've been talking about MS-13. Attorney General Sessions says he's going to treat them like a terrorist group, and they are a terrorist group. If you look at what's going on in Mexico and elsewhere where they have been, the brutal murders, the mutilations that you see there are like something you would see being done by Muslim terrorists in Syria and elsewhere. They need the extra tools that are there, but it is not simply an issue of open borders. It really is an issue of the war on drugs that has given them a very lucrative black market to get started with. It's made them billionaires. It's at the root of what they do. It's at the root of their crime. So we're going to go back to that. Leanne's going to break that down for you. Before we do, just want to thank you for your support. Everything we do is made possible by you. We don't take any loans. We don't get any government funding. It's simply the products that you buy in supporting us. And so we want to say thank you. We've extended this sale for the Easter Mega Special. You'll find it at InfoWarsStore.com. We have 25 to 30% discounts off a wide variety of products. We have Super Male and Super Female Vitality, 25% off. Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, 25% off. 25% off Secret 12, that's our vitamin B12, and 25% off Vitamin Mineral Fusion Drink Mix. That's a mix that you can add to water or make a smoothie out of, and you can drink your vitamins, get a broad spectrum of great vitamins and mineral nutrition without having to take a lot of pills. So that's 25% off of that, and 30% off Brain Force. So take a look at the products that we sell at InfoWarsStore.com. Take a look at those Easter Mega Specials that we've extended at InfoWarsStore.com. 25 to 30% off a wide variety of products. Now, Leanne, BBC News calls MS-13 the world's most brutal street gang. And that clearly is true of what we're seeing here. And now we're seeing Senator Sessions saying he's going to use the tools available to him by denoting them as a terrorist gang. I wish that they would take a look at really the root cause of this, and that is the war on drugs. But at least they're moving in that direction. They recognize it as a problem. The Obama administration did not recognize it as a problem. California tried to block the deportation of MS-13 and other gang members. They wanted to block that information even from the Trump administration, so they wouldn't even know who these people were. They wanted to protect them, keep them here, give them amnesty. These are just kids. They're
just
dreamers.
Kids.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that they also allowed 1,500 jihadists, former jihadists, into the country, give them asylum as well. The Obama administration said, you know, any kind of jihad activities they did, it's because they were under duress. So just bring them on in, just forgive them. And they did the same thing with these young MS-13 gang members, which in a lot of cases, yes, these kids are forced into the gang. They have no other choices, and they, from a very young age, 12, they make them commit murders, atrocious murders, to get them indoctrinated into these gangs. And so they're already...
And if they don't, they get hacked to death with machetes and things like that. Or their mothers,
they threaten, you know, that they're going to do this to their family members. So the kids just say, okay. And that's why we did see so many people willing to send their kids here alone on that dangerous journey, because it's true. It's a very violent there. But the thing is, it's in our country now. And
See, if we don't control immigration,
right.
then the people who are fleeing this kind of violence in Mexico or El Salvador or Central America, when they try to flee that violence, it follows them into this country.
Right.
So it doesn't work out for anybody. It doesn't work out for the refugees or the immigrants or whatever you want to call them, the illegal aliens. It doesn't work out for them, and it certainly doesn't work out for us. And yet you have California wanting to hide these lists. You have Maryland, where there's been a huge outbreak in MS-13 violence, saying that they want to not only have sanctuary cities, but they want to be the first sanctuary state. And they're saying this as they're having mass murders conducted by MS-13. It's absolute insanity of the left.
And they want to cover those murders up or separate the tie between the atrocious way someone has been murdered, and then they won't tell you that it is gang related because they don't want the people in this town to turn against their sanctuary city policies. And that's, I mean, that is insane to me. We're also seeing in Montana, about 40 miles of the border there has been ordered to be unpatrolled. Even though it's been historically a patrolled area, for whatever reason, now they want to keep this wide open swath open and just available for any money, guns, people, drugs, whatever to be.
And the Border Patrol agents who blew the whistle on this administrator said, A, this person is a holdover from the Obama administration, so there may be a political agenda here, or it just may be outright corruption because they are helping these drug gangs. And so it's a very important story. I got to make a real quick correction here. As I was saying before we went to break, I've been talking to Roger Stone, so I was saying Oliver Stone, thinking of Oliver North. He was the one who was bringing in the crack cocaine epidemic in order to fund this war in El Salvador, where MS-13 originated. When we come back, we'll have Leanne McAdoo with us, and we also have a special report coming up from Alex Jones in the next segment. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight with Leanne McAdoo. You know, we talk about the corruption in government. We talk about crony capitalism. We talk about, there's a story here about a Wells Fargo executive who is now suing the bank. This was Wells Fargo Bank, saying that she was fired because she wouldn't participate in a scam that they were doing on their customers that has led to millions of dollars in federal fines. And she said, you guys sued me because I didn't join in that, and now you're getting fined by the federal government. So we see this kind of corruption everywhere. And we see in Mexico, we see that we have crony capitalism here in the United States, as we're talking about the Export-Import Bank. We're making massive subsidized loans, subsidized by you, the taxpayer, $8.5 billion to Pemex. That is probably the most, the largest income source that is visible, that is legal for the Mexican government. And you and I are paying for loans for them to buy U.S. equipment from about a half dozen connected American companies. That's a certain kind of corruption. But there's a whole nother kind of corruption, Leanne, and that is the current Mexican president. You've got an article there talking about his connections to the darker side of the corruption in Mexico and his ties to the drug cartels.
Right. So multiple acts of corruption linked to the election of the current Mexican president, Enrique Peña Nieto. This is Breitbart reporting. So he's got ties to the cartels. There was mysterious release from prison of major cartel figures during his presidency. Regions of Mexico are under operational control of paramilitary transnational criminal organizations, which rarely go reported and nothing ever happens to them. Journalists have been murdered there. Last year, Breitbart revealed that a series of shell companies had been used by members of the Juarez cartel to funnel funds into Peña Nieto's 2012 election. There's also someone who helped run Peña Nieto's campaign. It was run by another politician, Humberto Morera. And before he was running the PRI party, the Institutional Revolutionary Party there in Mexico, and Peña Nieto's campaign, he was the governor of the border state of Coahuila. Now, during his time as governor, he was a surrogate for the Los Zetas cartel. He would give Los Zetas free reign in exchange for cash bribes. So and then we see what's kind of gone on with Los Zetas there. So once they were kind of in power and just given free reign to do what they wanted, they carried out a series of massacres in that state. One case alone, 300 victims, including women and children, were kidnapped, murdered, and incinerated in a network of ovens at government facilities. So Breitbart was able to investigate this thanks to a lot of anonymous people who were willing to speak out, but obviously very anonymously because they'd be murdered. But they were trying to get to the bottom of this because their family members were taken, kidnapped, incinerated. And what they were able to reveal, some of the victims were incinerated in 55-gallon drums inside the state-run prison there in Coahuila. So I'm sure, Morera, he knew nothing about this, just gave Los Zetas free reign in exchange for cash bribes. And then he went on to help run the current Mexican president's campaign. Great guy.
See, that's the problem with the war on drugs. The problem with the war on drugs is not only does it not work, it doesn't keep people off of drugs. So you still have the drug problem that it was meant to solve. I mean, does anybody within the Justice Department or the federal government, do any of them try to make any case for the effectiveness of this in terms of trying to stop drug addiction, drug use? No, they don't, because it doesn't. It doesn't stop it. But what it does do is we keep this problem, and the problem stays the same, or actually what we've seen is that it's grown tremendously. And then we have a massive government corruption problem. And when you look at how long this has festered, this corruption has festered, and you look at how it has created these brutal gangs in Mexico, because this is not MS-13. They haven't targeted Los Zetas as a terrorist organization. Right. MS-13 is even worse. So you have all these different drug gangs, and there's many of them, and they are thriving off of this. They were created by this. Now they're diversifying into other businesses of human trafficking and other things like this, but that was their core base. And they have been hurt by marijuana legalization. Right. And so now they're moving more into human trafficking and everything. We created these organizations, and they're going to be very hard to take down, but that's the fruit of the war on drugs. And that's what we have to understand. It's only going to get worse. We can't build a wall to keep this out. We can't hire enough police to do it. Confiscating your property without trial, or your neighbor's property, taking their home, taking their car, taking their boat, that isn't going to stop this. It's the war on drugs. The bottom line is the prohibition. That's the thing that is really killing us.
Right, absolutely. And to educate people on the fact that Big Pharma is the biggest drug pusher out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you, Leanne. We're going to play a report for you now. It is the top 10. You'll find this on Infowars.com as well. Alex Jones, top 10 performance art characters. Here's a compilation of what he's done over the years.
Alex Jones has been fighting tyranny, government corruption, and the lying mainstream media since the mid-1990s. He is a syndicated radio talk show host who has pioneered streaming video over the web, and his websites and YouTube channels have unbelievable reach. Recently, MSM Talking Heads went crazy with the report that Alex Jones is a performance artist and actor, and thus everything he has ever reported on must be considered fake news.
His lawyer is arguing that Alex Jones is playing a character and is a performance artist.
And there is some truth to the first part of this statement. He was an actor in 2 groundbreaking Richard Linklater animated films. The first was Waking Life. The scene with Alex driving through the town with a car-mounted bullhorn, warning people to wake up, is considered by many to be a highlight of the film.
I don't know about you, but I'm concerned with what's happening in this world. I'm concerned with the structure. I'm concerned with the systems of control. Those that control my life and those that seek to control it even more.
The second, based on the Philip K. Dick dystopia novel A Scanner Darkly, once again depicts Alex with a bullhorn, warning people of the dangers of a new drug being pushed by the government, who is then tased and thrown into a car by some global love cops.
It's time to realize that we're being enslaved. Uh-oh, it's our tax dollars at work. Protect us from ourselves. Hey, guys, I used to be one of you. Stop selling out your own speech.
He also played an evil senator in the independent film warning of EMP dangers, Amerigeddon.
That man's a threat to this country.
All 3 of these are listed in his IMDb account as acting credits, but he also has 17 credits for documentary films he produced, ranging in subjects from the police state using paid rioters at the WTC in 1999 to 9/11, the OKC bombing, Obama, NSA spying, and How to Secure Your Home. These documentaries have all been offered free online and have proven legendary in their reach and how they predicted and forewarned of events that are finally getting mainstream attention. But let's take a look at videos that Alex produced where he did assume a role and indeed become a performance artist. These are the top 10 Alex Jones performances. Number 10, A Scientist Who Can Fly. Even though this was an ad for the InfoWars Life product, Supermale Vitality, it illustrates how Alex Jones can channel the character of a scientist on the verge of an amazing breakthrough, while at the same time he educates people on the current attacks that are happening to their glands and hormonal systems from the use of everyday products. By the end of this 2.5-minute video produced in 2014, Alex becomes so consumed with his inner power, he gains the ability to fly.
Up, and away!
Number 9, Russian agent. The mainstream media and outgoing Obama administration were blown away by the presidential election of 2016 when Donald Trump took power from the loathsome Hillary Clinton, who cheated on the debates and even had the supposed impartial DNC attack and steal the nomination from Bernie Sanders. This was spun that anyone and everyone who was pro-Trump had to be a Russian agent. Donning this role, Alex became a mind control victim of the Russians, who was being led by an actual Russian on staff, Daria, who was trying to get him to repeat Trump policies. This theater of the absurd tactic was used to show how ridiculous the Russian agent attack was, but it later came out in an Armed Services Committee hearing that InfoWars was viewed as an echo chamber for Russian media outlets, proving that if you aren't for war with Russia, then you must be a Russian agent.
You have RT, you have Sputnik, you have Ruppli, and then I think you have them feeding other entities. InfoWars comes to mind, where those are echo chambers.
Number 8, Alex Jones admits he's Bill Hicks. Internet sleuths have been hounding Alex Jones for years, saying he was Bill Hicks. And while he does slightly resemble the groundbreaking comic, and both were friends with filmmaker Kevin Booth, the age and height are immediate signs that this is totally false. In early 2015, Alex had enough and decided to admit to the world that he played the character Bill Hicks, but was actually a famed English actor, David Mendelsohn III, master orator, who was indeed playing two characters, Bill Hicks and Alex Jones, for the last 30 years, and that now he was ready to retire.
I am David Mendelsohn. To be quite clear, David Mendelsohn III.
Alex Jones has donned the English accent several times, most notably in the legendary Piers Morgan interview.
I can speak in this accent as well.
Yeah.
The
But is that what you
government,
believe?
Hitler firebombed his own Reichstag, Pierce.
But it was the subtle accuracy of the accent that earned this performance number 8 in our top 10. Number 7, Alex Jones becomes a trans dog. Jumping on the trans movement, which is basically an excuse for people to act weird and have that behavior legitimized, Alex Jones declared that he was transzoological and had black socks sewn to his ears to become a dog. This video is short, barely a minute long, but the message that you must accept any and all behaviors from people, or you are a racist bigot, is a powerful message, even through all the dog barking.
You're a homophobe, you're an anti-zoological phobe, you're a piece of filth. So now, I become my new self.
Number 6, Cobra Commander. As the 2012 election season kicked into high gear, Alex Jones decided to interview Cobra Commander, who had recently announced his run for the White House. In the video, Cobra Commander for President, Alex Jones interviews himself playing the terrorist leader who has the CIA, Bin Laden, and North Korea all on his payroll. Mr. Cobra lays out his platform on why he would be the best leader for the United States of America. What is most amazing on this performance is the voice of Cobra Commander, which sounds outstandingly like the cartoon character who was previously voiced by the late Chris Latta.
I am Supreme Cobra Commander. You call your petty bureaucrats, officials, and authorities. You will kneel before Cobra or face my wrath.
Number 5, Alex becomes a TSA tattletale.
Don't trust the public. Only trust Janet, Big Sis Napolitano, and Homeland Security.
In the intro for the documentary New World Order, Blueprint for Mad Men, Alex Jones plays a busybody who wants to become an elite Homeland Security tattletale for the FBI and DHS head Janet Dung Beetle Napolitano.
You got responsibilities now.
The only problem is he works at a coffee shop, but that doesn't deter the TSA wannabe from spying on customers and freak out on them when they try to pay with cash.
Oh, no, it's true. He's looking at InfoWars.
It's this performance that earns number 5 on our list.
And that's what America's about. Total schizophrenic paranoia.
Number 4, Alex Jones as a lizard. In October 2013, it became increasingly clear that Obamacare was indeed a scam job meant to jack up insurance rates that would lead to horrible health care. Alex Jones produced the video. Alex Jones reveals Obamacare's secret origins. He dons the mask of Star Trek character Gorn, complete with a top hat, to explain how alien this legislation is and how it was nothing but lies.
Because we're insurance companies who wrote it? Let me pick my teeth here.
Number 3, John Corzine breaks into InfoWars headquarters headquarters. As the MF Global scandal broke in late 2011, Alex Jones donned a grandfatherly beard and innocent top hat and once again interviewed himself.
Gary Gensler was your main minion at Goldman Sachs, and he headed up the CFTC. He's been missing now for a month.
In the interview, John the Don Corzine admitted he had stolen the money from the private accounts, but there was nothing that anyone could do about it. The sound bites that Corzine drops in this video are legendary, and it's why it's number 3 on our top 10 countdown.
Was there something else you wanted to sit on Santa's knee and ask for, Mr. Jones?
Number 2, the devil. In the video, secret DHS training video leaked. Alex Jones plays the role of an elite on Earth who is communicating with the devil, whom he also plays.
Soon, our armies will be released, and nothing on the planet Earth can stop our forces.
The depths of evil depicted in this video freaked out many listeners who called and emailed their concern. But Alex felt that this video truly depicted the demonic forces that have been guiding the eugenics-obsessed elites since the beginning of time. His voice is also super freaky, and it's the lines he channeled into this performance that earned a number 2 spot in our top 10 of Alex Jones performances.
Oh, beautiful death, might we pull down the mountains and poison the streams? Might 1 trillion children be aborted?
And finally, number 1, Alex Jones as the Joker. In August 2009, a picture depicting Barack Obama as the Joker started making the rounds online, but was quickly attacked as racist by the mainstream media. Quick to capitalize on this meme, Alex Jones donned creepy Joker makeup and completed his August 7th broadcast as the Joker himself, and announced a Joker poster contest where the winner would receive $1,000. This contest was a huge success, and posters of the president in Joker makeup appeared across America. People made videos of their postering, and it proved to be a big hit online and in the real world. It was Alex's creepiest role to date, and many listeners thought he had truly lost it. But it was an amazing promotion for a contest that went nationwide. It's this role as the Joker that earned the number 1 spot on this video of top 10 performances.
Because we've got the documents and we've got the proof of the criminal activities they've been carrying out.
Now, there are many performances made by Alex Jones as he hijacked memes and helped spread the message of liberty and freedom across the world, and all would not fit on this list. So in the comments below, add what your favorite performance or character that Alex Jones has assumed. Thanks for watching, and here's a brief message from Alex responding to the recent MSM attacks.
First off, they love to brand us as fake news, or the media loves to attack me and say he dresses up in lizard suits like Gwar, or whatever the name of the guy is from the Star Trek episode, the famous one where he's fighting Captain Kirk. And then the news asks me, are you serious? And I say, that's satire. I'm being an actor, acting like I'm a space alien that wants to exterminate the population of the Earth, trying to sell you on taking vaccines. I don't actually believe that the Star Trek character's real. Then they go, oh my gosh, Alex Jones is fake. He says he's an actor. Look, he was in Scanner Darkly and he was in Waking Life. They think you're completely stupid and they think you're completely mentally ill. If I put a top hat on and play the part of the head of Goldman Sachs saying, I'm screwing you over, I love the mega banks, I'm going to rob you, world government's good, I'm illustrating how George Soros and other people think of you. I don't literally believe that. The times that I put on clown makeup and played the part of the Joker saying, drink your fluoride water and take your vaccines because you're going to see pretty colors, kids, people got freaked out and said, oh my gosh, you're not for real because you act like a nice guy on air, but then you acted like a monster for an hour on TV, and it was powerful. It was a powerful performance. That's why people were so freaked out. And they said, what's the real you? You know, I keep thinking people are smart. This is the real me, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Republic, changing the world, Brexit, nationalism rising, Second Amendment, family, delivering the goods, getting people elected. Patriot congressmen and women taking over the House of Representatives and their listeners, folks. Freedom Caucus, every one of them, basically. They can't stand that. This platform of people like David Knight and Paul Watson, all the other guests, and Ron Paul and Colonel Schaefer and countless other people, and our great writers and researchers, are they actors? Are they fakes? Do I screen them before they come on air? Do we tell guests what they can talk about? No, everybody else does, not us. We don't do pre-interviews. Ask anybody. We're the most bona fide, hardcore, real McCoy thing there is. And everybody knows it, and we're delivering the goods.
Receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight. I want to talk about what's going on with the elections that are going to be coming up in Sunday in France, but also about what's being said about the U.S. Green Party. We got an article here from WND saying they're going all in for Islam. I'll explain that to you in just a moment. Before I do, real quickly, we've extended our Easter mega special at InfoWarsStore.com. That's 25 to 30% off a wide variety of products, things like Super Male, Super Female Vitality, Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine, 25% off. 25% off Secret 12 Vitamin B12, and 30% off Brain Force. You can see those specials at InfoWarsStore.com. We have, again, extended those. We really appreciate your support. That is what funds our operation here. It's made possible by you. We don't get money from the government like PBS. I've got a PBS story here for you. You will not believe. We don't get money from the government, and we don't get grants from George Soros. As a matter of fact, they take out grants and funding to shut us down, and we've talked about that extensively. So we appreciate your support. That's what funds our operation here. Thank you so much, and we've extended this sale of 25 to 30% off. You can find that at InfoWarsStore.com. The Green Party is going all in for Islam, says WND. They say they put out a briefing paper for party activists, instructing them to work with the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and other Islamicists to fight Islamophobia and oppression in all forms. They say Islamophobia is a contrived fear or a prejudice fomented by the existing Eurocentric and Orientalist global power structure. Okay, all right. Get rid of the sophomoric labels that you took out of your freshman classes here. This is ridiculous. It should be treated as a type of racism. Let's talk about what's really going on here. The person who nailed this was a Polish interior minister. He said his country will not fall prey to the same violence and savagery that is sweeping much of Europe due to open borders and suicidal refugee policies of his neighbors. He said the policy of multiculturalism, which is what the Green Party is talking about, that's what they were taught when they went to their freshman political science classes and all the way through to their graduate classes. The policy of multiculturalism in Western Europe is bringing about a bloody harvest in the form of terrorist attacks. Does that sound like overblown rhetoric, or is that really what's happening? I think is really what's happening. He says our predecessors, meaning the previous government, agreed to receive thousands of refugees and de facto immigrants from the Middle East and Northern Africa. They were striving to bring about such a crisis. So he points out this is not just something that they stumbled into, that they didn't see this coming. No, they were striving to bring about a crisis, a multicultural crisis. As I point out many times, not only do we not have the capability to vet the people who are coming in from other countries, what if it's 1%? What if it's only 1/10 of 1%? And the quantities that you're bringing people in, you're bringing in a lot of radical Islamic terrorists. And so that's just the first generation. Once they come into the country, once their families self-ghettoize and do not want to mix with the rest of the culture, continually told that they are superior to everyone, and yet the lie is that they aren't. They can see that they're not getting ahead because they don't want to assimilate. They want to remain separate in their own little ghetto. That builds an intense resentment in the second generation, and you will have more terrorists in the second generation than you do in the first one. Now, this is a political party that he has. It's a nationalist party, pro-Christianity, the Law and Justice Party. That's what they said about it. Now, if you think that that is overblown rhetoric, think about the fact that you've got the Fresno Bee 2 months before Tuesday's deadly attack, where the guy killed people because they're white. How's that for multiculturalism? That's what they're told. Shouting Allahu Akbar, which is not God is great, but our God is greater than your God. And this was the title of this article that they put in the Fresno Bee from the New York Times. Husbands are deadlier than jihadi terrorists. Stay with us when we come back. I'm going to tell you what PBS is teaching your children. We'll be right back.